what's up, readers and writers? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Frankie. And today I'm interviewing a person. This is my sister Grace. She is also a writer. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of things you write.
I pretty strongly consider myself as a fantasy writer. I mostly read fantasy, I mostly write fantasy, but I'm actually writing sci-fi right now. But I don't really consider myself a sci-fi writer. And in fact, the sort of tropes, the genre normals, like I feel like I try to bring more fantasy into it, but the concept is technically sci-fi.
How are they different?
Of course, sci-fi definitely has more of a technology aspect. Usually it's more likely or possible that it could be, future of our actual timeline, but it tends to be more of like sort of there's a science component of it. Fantasy has more of the magical component. You're usually not going to see magic in sci-fi. Most things are explained in fantasy via magic versus like you might come up with some sort of fantastical science explanation for something in sci-fi. Pretty similar. You have you can have aliens in sci-fi, but you have races that people make up in fantasy. I mean, it's just kind of just the way it's structured. I think fantasy has a little bit more of that like fairy tale, classic hero's journey kind of like that's what readers expect from fantasy. Or sci-fi maybe more like a bit on the action.
Do you find that there are different restrictions between the different genres?
Yeah, I think sci-fi is harder to write because in fantasy, if you need something to work, you can just find a way to make it work. You control the rules of the magic, you control the rules of your world. Yeah. If you need something to fit the plot or the character, just create it so that it is so. Writing sci-fi, I find myself I'm constantly more worried about is this even vaguely scientifically accurate? Are people gonna be like, there's no freaking way that would work? I want to think of something and I'm like, well, I now need to research to see if there's at least some sort of basis in reality. I feel like it's more challenging.
So there's a lot of research that goes into this for you.
I do a lot more research, probably because, I watch a lot of sci-fi TV shows, movie. I do read sci-fi books, but just not as much as I read fantasy books, so I feel like I have to do more research, whereas I've just read so much fantasy that I have a lot of background in there that I can use.
And so I've had the pleasure of reading her current WIP, and I know that she has created technology in here, so how did you do that?
A lot of Googling. In sci-fi, obviously, there are some people who want the sci-fi to be really, truly scientifically accurate, and then there's kind of, that area of sci-fi where you're like, it's the future, who knows what could happen in the future, where you kind of stretch it a little bit.
And there's people like me who don't know science, and I'm just like, well, I won't question it at all.
So I try to at least really research actual relevant science or things that could actually happen. My book is kind of in a post-apocalyptic time period where Earth is not habitable, and I've done a lot of research in what could actually happen that would make Earth not habitable.
What are some of those things?
Surprisingly, not as many things as you would think. I'm it would be so easy to just make it so that we can't live in the world forever and ever. But when you look at the research, it seems like it really doesn't take that long for the world to bounce back. Even with crazy nuclear winters, scientists feel like there's really only a few decades where truly there you couldn't live at all. And then the radiation starts decaying and it just starts getting to the point where things start coming back to life and you're like, no, I need hundreds of years.
You might have a three-headed deer from Chernobyl, but it is alive.
There just has to be circumstances that just probably wouldn't happen. You have to get to the point where you'd be like, what if every single nuclear weapon on Earth went off at the same time? Because if there was a nuclear disaster, it's likely not going to destroy the entire planet. There's going to be parts. Or even if you look into super volcanoes, one super volcano, yes, is going to destroy a large part of the Earth and probably put us in volcanic winter from all that ash and sulfur, but it's not going to destroy the whole world. It's harder than you would think to destroy the whole world.
Okay. What if it gets too hot?
I guess, if you go a extreme climate change thing where it's so hot, even then I think you'd probably have at least pockets of people that survive. But I guess you could theoretically go to the point where it was so hot that the whole, a solar flare or something where the whole thing just...
Wow. Yeah, it is a lot harder to...
It's just harder than you think. You think, oh, I'm just gonna Google for 3 seconds and then find something that will destroy the whole world that will fit my purposes and it'll be fine. And then you're like, no.
And so, your current work in progress is a novel. Did you previously write any short stories or poems? Is this the only medium that you've worked in?
I have written poems. Not for a long time. I guess I haven't really set out to write short stories, but I've written a lot of novels that I never completed. Like parts of novels or outlines of novels that didn't actually get to an actual like full manuscript.
And outlines are still a lot of work.
I mean, I've spent years on outlines or just like, you know, like percolating this idea in your head and one kind of thing. My husband will be like, what are you doing? Like, I'm just staring into space. I'm like, I'm writing. He's like,
Okay,
I feel
Grace.
like your writing is like code word for I'm about to take a nap or something. Like, no, I'm writing. Trust me. It's just up here.
Do you let him read what you write?
No,
No.
I don't, because not only is he not a writer, he's not a reader. Which, I mean, it's like maybe the only thing I don't like about him. He doesn't like to read at all. So I really feel like I get like one shot. Like when the book's done, he'll read it. Because he doesn't really enjoy reading, he's not gonna be the person who reads it 100 times. Like this draft, this draft, this draft. Like it's just not gonna be something that's enjoyable for him and therefore not even constructive to me. Obviously, he'll read it when it's done, but no, I don't have him read when I'm in progress. It would be counterproductive.
What do you do to get yourself in the mood to writing? Some people like to make soundtracks, playlists for their books or scenes they're writing. Some people watch a movie or read a different book. What do you do?
I do have a writing playlist that I play when I'm writing usually.
What's on it? I don't have one, so I'm always
Really?
curious when people are like, yes, I do.
It's mostly just songs that it's kind of a mix of songs that I connect to personally and then songs that maybe I feel like describes like a certain part of my book. Like there are certain songs that I'll play when I'm writing a certain, you know, where I want my character to be in a certain space that I feel like the song reflects that, play to match. Sometimes, like, I'm not gonna lie, like I just get stuck on a song for no apparent reason and I've got like Call Me Maybe playing on the background for like an hour while I'm just like writing.
Murder!
Like, you know, when sometimes something just works, it works. But yeah, it's kind of a big mixture of pop and rock and it's just kind of like things that I'll hear a song and if it makes me think of my book or it makes me feel like writing, I add it on.
Playlist.
I definitely think that reading other fiction and reading about writing, you know, are really good ways. Sometimes if I just cannot write, then I will read about writing and a lot of times that kind of, you know, gets the ideas going. I think that, you know, when you're writing and you're really trying to have a high output for writing, that you just end up putting everything out, and if you're not careful and you're putting things back in, your bucket is empty at some point. Like you want to write, but there's nothing in there because you haven't been, you know, bringing in influences. So at that point, it's like, you know, watch a really good movie, you know, with good character, theme development, something, you know, that I enjoy, read a book, even just like playing piano or coloring, like doing something else that is creative, like uses your creative mind but is not pulling writing out of you, I feel like can kind of fill your well back up so that you have something to give again.